which is something that you can do in chess. If I'm playing you a game of chess and you beat me, we know that you made better decisions than I did. If I beat you, we know that I made better decisions than you. And that's because, as we talked about in chess, there isn't the same uncertainty. We can see all the pieces, and there isn't this very strong element of luck. And this becomes a really big problem for the way that we sort of figure out, as outcomes come our way, what really are we supposed to learn from those? Are we supposed to learn that we're not supposed to pass the ball in those situations anymore? Well, mathematically, it was actually a really good play, and if people have any questions about it, they can go look at, for example, what Benjamin Morris said about it on NateSilvers538.com. But the only fact that you really need to know there to understand this is that the interception rate in that situation was between about 0 and 2%, depending on what data you look at.
I remember that from your book.
It just sits it in the bad luck category when the interception rate is so low.
Annie, I have to tell you, just for a second now, I have to make a decision, and that's to take a brief break at this point in the show. We're going to come back, but at this point, I want to remind our listeners that you're listening to The Secrets of Success. My name is Bill Horan. The show is produced at the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. We'll be right back after this brief intermission.
Excuse me. I know you have a 9 o'clock, so I'll keep this short. I'm the business suit in the back of your closet. You wore me nearly every day before your office went, quote, casual. I used to be the CEO of your closet. Now I'm just that one intern no one ever talks to. I always thought you'd circle back with me, get granular, keep me in the pipeline. But nada. Nothing. Don't you remember the McKittrick presentation? You spilled coffee on me, and I still looked amazing during the breakout talkback Q&A. So, I think it's time for me to move on. I've got a great resume, and I absolutely crush it in interviews, okay? Let's make this a clean break. Shift the paradigm. The only thing I ask is that you think outside the box here and do this. Take me to Goodwill, where I can really make a difference.
Your donations to Goodwill create new jobs, training programs, and education assistance for people in your community. To find your nearest donation center, go to goodwill.org. Donate stuff. Create jobs. A message from Goodwill and the Ad Council.
Welcome back. You're listening to The Secrets of Success. I'm your host, Bill Horan, and today we're speaking with Annie Duke, author of Thinking in Bets. Annie, you were just telling us about the Super Bowl example, and my question to you is, why are we always so uncomfortable with the role that luck plays in the decisions? I mean, I guess when we start thinking about it, and then certainly reading your book, there's a lot of luck that happens throughout our life, both good luck and bad luck. But why are we uncomfortable with that concept?
Well, I think the reason why in general we're uncomfortable with it is that we're uncomfortable with the idea that random things can happen. You know, I think that we want to feel like we're masters of our own fate, that, you know, just with a lot of hard work and a lot of good decision making, of course things will turn out well, and also that we're allowed to take credit for our success. So when good things happen to us and things really work out for us, I think that we want to believe that that's due to something that was actually in our control. And I think that when we're looking at other people who are successful or unsuccessful, we want to believe that we can repeat it. We can avoid the mistakes through our own good decision making, and we can recreate the successes through our own good decision making. And if there's a very strong influence of luck, then that it feels a little bit like that goes out the window, although it doesn't. But I think it feels like it does. And so, you know, we're really built to connect things very tightly together. We're big pattern recognizers. It's just the way that we were built. And I think that we really try to look for patterns and correlations and causation where they don't necessarily exist, because I think it makes us feel like we have more control than we actually do.
Now, I took a quote from your book. You say, "I don't know is not failure, but a necessary step toward enlightenment." What does that mean?
So if we go back to this idea that, I mean, take the Pete Carroll example, right? Obviously, there's a lot of luck in the way that turns out. So there's so much hidden information, and there's so much luck involved in the way that things turn out, that if we focus on process, if we focus on the quality of the decision we make, and we focus less on outcomes, we're going to be better decision makers. If we imagine that the good outcomes have to reveal themselves over time, and what we can really focus in on is the quality of our decisions and the quality of our beliefs, we're going to be better off. But in order to do that, we have to recognize that if I ask you how something is going to turn out, that the appropriate answer is usually some form of I'm not sure or I don't know. And we can see that really clearly, like if we think about a coin flip. So even if you looked at the coin and you know that it's two-sided, there's a heads on one side, a tails on the other, and that it's well weighted, so that you know something very specific about the coin, which is it will flip heads 50% of the time and it will land tails 50% of the time. If I say to you, what will it land on the next flip? The appropriate answer is I don't know. I can't tell you exactly what it will land. I just know it will land heads 50% of the time. And until you recognize that uncertainty, it's going to be very difficult for you to make good decisions. If you think that you have to get to certainty, if you have to know what the answer is, it's going to be really hard for you to get there, and it's actually going to hamper your ability to make decisions, number one. And number two, it's going to cause you to draw the wrong conclusions from the results in your life. So if we take like the Pete Carroll example, if you look at that, people were drawing the conclusions that it's a bad idea to pass in that situation because they're not recognizing that there's a lot of uncertainty in the way that turned out. But that's actually quite a bad conclusion to draw from that, because mathematically, if you work the math out, it's actually a really good decision. So this problem, if we don't allow I don't know, if we don't allow I'm not sure, if we don't allow uncertainty to be part of the equation, we start, first of all, having unreal expectations of how well we're supposed to be able to predict the future, number one. Number two, we take the wrong lessons from the way that the future actually unfolds. And three, we tend to be a lot more surprised by how the future unfolds. Because once we declare with certainty that things are a certain way, when they don't turn out that way, we're just surprised, as opposed to being able to be nimble and responsive to things not turning out, say, the way that we imagine they might, because we haven't imagined that there are other ways things could be.
Annie, once again, I'd like our audience to know that if you just tuned in, our guest today is Annie Duke. Her book is Thinking in Bets. She's a championship poker player and an academic person who is putting the two of those together and helping us make better decisions and realizing that when we think we're wrong, it may not be a bad decision. We may have done the right things, but it just turned out the wrong way. Annie, can you tell us where the book is available and the website where we can find out more?
Sure. It's available, of course, in any of your brick-and-mortar bookstores, Barnes & Noble, your local independent bookstore, and then you can also find it in the usual places online. If you want to see what all those options are in one place, you can go to my website, which is www.annieduke.com, and there's a landing page for the book that allows you to see all the links where you might be able to buy it online.
And Annie is spelled A-N-N-I-E, correct?
Correct.
And Duke, D-U-K-E, easy to spell?
Correct.
And I'll tell our audience, if you're flying and you're looking in that airport bookstore for a great book to read, something that's both entertaining and will give you a lot of insights and also make you a really interesting person to talk to at that next meeting or cocktail party or even just sitting next to someone in the airport, get hold of Thinking in Bets. It's a little over 200 pages. It's not a heavy read, and I'm marking mine up with all kinds of little pencil markings that I can go back and quote from it because Annie knows what she's talking about. I've never won $4 million in poker. She has, so she's the expert. Annie, you also point out that even a really good player, they're going to lose 40% of the time. I think a good baseball hitter makes out about 70%. They're still batting 300. So it's kind of a gradation of decisions, right? I mean, we're not going to be perfect.
Yeah, so it's about understanding that in order to make a good decision, you have to recognize that there's lots of different possible ways that the future can turn out, and there will always be more ways that the future could turn out than the one that actually happens. And your job is to try to make sure that the good results that you're looking for are a percentage that you want, that you're looking for, of the possible ways that the future can turn out. So, for example, it doesn't matter if I flip a coin and it's going to land heads 50% of the time and tails 50% of the time. Okay, that's fine that let's say that I want to call heads, that will only happen half the time, as long as my return, let's say it's, in this case, we're betting money, but you can think about returns and, for example, in terms of your health, your happiness, your time, what are you spending your time on, and what are you getting in return for the investment of time? And but if we think about just money, it's fine as long as you're paying me $2 for every $1 that I lose. It doesn't matter that half the time I'm going to lose the bet because I'm going to get enough in return for it. So that's similar to sort of the way a poker player views the world. Is I could win 55% of the time and lose 45% of the time, and that's all fine as long as I'm winning more than I'm losing in terms of the investment that I'm making in that. So I recognize that 45% of the time it's not going to particularly work out. And that's going to be true of most things, right? You invest in a stock, you're hoping it's going up, but you certainly can't ever guarantee it. You, even if it's, we're choosing a life partner, we're hoping it's the best choice for us, but we certainly can't guarantee it. If you're choosing a particular way that you want to eat based on the information that's available to you, you can think about how that might have changed, right? Given the available information in 1975, you might have chosen to eat a very low-fat, high-sugar diet. And given the information that you had, that might have been a very, very reasonable choice. Looking back on that with the information that's since been revealed, and this is the problem of hidden information, we know that a low-fat, high-sugar diet is actually not the best choice, that we actually want to be eating a low-sugar diet. But in 1975, you would have made a very different choice, which would have been really reasonable at the time. So those things change. So you're just trying to make the best investment that you can based on the information that you have, and taking it into account, trying to take into account, how luck might influence the outcome.
Well, your book really points that out for us, and as our audience probably is realizing as we're talking, a poker player, I think you said, has 30 hands every hour. Roughly a hand is 2 minutes. You're risking your own money on it, and your decision-making process has to be good. It has to be fast, and if not, you're not sitting on the winning side of the table. Once again, before we wrap up, I'd like our audience to be reminded that the book is Thinking in Bets, B-E-T-S. It's by our guest, Annie, A-N-N-I-E Duke, D-U-K. Annie, would you give us the website once again?
Sure. It's www.annieduke.com, and you can find the landing page for my book there. People can also find a link to subscribe to my newsletter there. I send a newsletter out every Friday, which applies these concepts from Thinking in Bets in terms of cognitive bias and uncertainty, and how do you think more in percentages. How do you become a better decision maker? And it's taking generally things that are in current events, either politics or tech or science, and looking at those through the eye of this kind of philosophy.
It's a great read, and it might even make us a winner at the poker table. Annie, thanks so much. I love your book. We'd like to let our audience know that you've been listening to The Secrets of Success on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. I'm your host, Bill Horan, asking you to please join us again next week at the same time when we will continue our journey to success.